Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. Well, I always feel and I've been like you, I love the draft forever, but you are a professional scout. I always feel there's like about 2 players per draft that can't miss. So take out quarterbacks. Take quarterbacks out because they are very dependent on where they land. But a guy can rush the passer or he can't. A guy can catch or he can't. This draft does feel like, to me, it's got about 5 guys. I don't see Marvin Harrison Jr. missing. I think he's just, I don't think Brock Bowers is missing. Joe Alt. Those guys jump out to me. Is the kid at Oregon State the right tackle who, like, you can't find bad tape on him? It does feel like this draft, but like there are players in this draft. I think sometimes receivers can be very dependent on the environment and the quarterback. Quarterbacks are very dependent on several people, including the play caller. But if I said to you, 2 guys in the draft as a former scout, because I always thought Patrick Willis, the Ole Miss linebacker, I was told by a GM, 32 teams he'd worked for. I was told Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, like, that's going to work. I'm trying to think of somebody else. Calvin Johnson was going
Larry
to work.
Fitzgerald, Julio Jones. I mean, there are certain guys that
they're going to work. Give me the 2 guys here. Let's say they go to a lousy situation. You cannot see failing.
Well, I don't see how it's possible for a kid from Napa, California to go to the best program in the country at Georgia. And Brock Bowers, I would say pretty immediately as a freshman in definitely the most athletic conference in the country, was one of their best players. And by year 2 or 3, he's arguably the best player in the country, pound for pound, as good as anybody.
Maybe the best, most productive tight end I've ever seen in college.
So you get this guy that goes, it would have been easy for a West Coast guy, go to Oregon, go to USC, even in Oklahoma or Texas, he went all the way to where the pressure was brightest and dominated. I don't see, and I know there's some comparison, doesn't really block. Well, the game's changed a lot. We have a lot more of these hybrid tight ends, a lot more of the Travis Kelce style. He's very, like any receiver, dependent on a quarterback to throw him the ball, obviously. But how's he not going to be a good NFL pro? I saw some of his measurables. They put right next to Laporta, very similar size. A little harder to judge, I think, sometimes those Big Ten tight ends, because you're like, well, who's he, defenders he playing against? There's no debate. Think about the guys he went and practiced against, Colin. If I was a scout, I wouldn't even need to watch game tape. I'd be like, can I just get your Georgia practice tape from a year ago? Your entire draft when the 11 guys on defense went. So I think they had 18 guys on defense go over a 2-year span. I can imagine Kirby's like, yeah, we couldn't cover him there either. So yeah. I don't see how it's possible. I was texting about sometimes height at tackle. Like there's 6'6", like a Trent Williams, Jason Peters. I think Lane Johnson 6'5". Like 6'8", 6'9" can get a little tall because Von Miller or Nick Bosa, these guys, where they are to the ground, it's just hard to touch them. But for what I've heard about Joe Alt, it's just his athleticism. I just don't see how he's not going to be good. Now, the one thing with him, because I was texting, I was like, should the Chargers, if they get stuck, just take him? They're like, well, you already got the left tackle. Just get a touchdown guy for Herbert. You can get a right tackle maybe in the 2nd round. You've already got that position. You don't need to force it. If you do get stuck there, just take whoever you think the best skill guy is, and there are some talented guys. And most people believe the 3 wide receivers. And you and I talked about, I saw James Jones, which I understand a lot of the players are like, God, it's bullshit. Marvin Harrison isn't doing anything, when all the other guys worked out. All the quarterbacks, all the wide receivers. I heard Neighbors at the LSU Pro Day, which I don't know if you saw some pictures. That thing was a zoo of NFL people.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Marvin, watch this. Because he thinks he's going to go number 1. I defend Marvin in the sense everything he's doing is because his dad's telling him. And when your dad's in the Hall of Fame, if he tells you to jump, you say how high. So it's like, I don't believe it's his own choice. I'm not saying he's not agreeing to it, but what's he supposed to do? Tell his dad he doesn't know what he's talking about?
Right.
But that Neighbors, Connie ran a 4.3. He's a fantastic tape. I mean, dominated in the SEC, ran a 4.35 and jumped 42 inches. I mean, pretty rare athlete. So it's hard. I don't know what to gauge on Harbaugh. I think I said you and I talked about this last week about the wide receivers, and someone hit me up like, the Ravens have taken wide receivers over the years. Yeah, in the 20s when they're good. When they've drafted high, it's Lodi Nada, it's Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
Now, that I don't know if that guy's really here, right? There's not a great pass rusher in this. The Bama guy, I don't think he's viewed as a top 10 player. Like we
No.
talked about, they don't need a left tackle. You could, I guess, take the Oregon State guy there, probably be a little rich. But I don't know. You know, if Harbaugh didn't take Marvin Harrison, he's seen him back-to-back years, right? And seen him on cross film for 3 years at
Yeah.
Michigan. That'd be a little interesting. Neighbors is, from what you know, I think has had some incidents over the years, but his
Right.
talent, I think they feel he's pretty buttoned up right now. Rome honestly feels kind of like a Harbaugh guy. Uh, but I don't know. I think the Chargers are fascinating. But yeah, I would go Brock Bowers. I don't see how he's not. If you gave him if you just put him on the Chargers, which I don't think, you know, that he would immediately make like 9, 10, you know, ish $1 million. And a tight end, the franchise tag's 12. So ideally taking a tight end that high, you're already paying
Yeah.
him premium money. But I think he'd be a premium player immediately. I think he would
Well,
dominate. If you told me
yeah.
Brock Bowers is on the Chargers next year, I'd be like, he catches 88 balls. Wouldn't you?
9 touchdowns. I mean,
Yeah.
here's the other thing. Letting Gerald Everett go to the Bears, they don't have, I mean, they're well below average in the NFL at tight end. And so, and Herbert, I mean, can you imagine him having a 6'6" target? You know, because he's been so effective with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I mean, so he's one of those guys that will throw guys open. A lot of young quarterbacks don't.
No.
He throws young guys open.